You're listening to The Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter at RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Hello, sports fans! Welcome to another edition of the Jacob Valk Show. I am the Jacob Valk, and you're not. I've got to start with the Home Run Derby. That event yesterday was everything that we wanted it to be as baseball fans. We saw incredible home runs. Home runs hit to parts of Coors Field that most Rockies season ticket holders probably didn't even know existed. We saw incredible individual displays of power. We had great drama. There were upsets galore. It was a great home run derby. Major League Baseball does it right. They do their All-Star game right. It's one of the few times you can say that about Major League Baseball. Compared to the NHL All-Star game, the Pro Bowl, the NBA All-Star game, and everything that goes into those events, the MLB All-Star game is by far and away the best in all of sports. It's not even a contest. I don't watch the NHL All-Star Game. I don't watch the Pro Bowl. I don't watch the NBA All-Star Game. The MLB All-Star Game stuff, I'll watch. I will watch the skills competition in hockey and like the slam dunk contest, the three-point competition, the stuff like that in basketball if there's nothing else on. Like if the Nets are playing the same day as the NHL skills competition, I'm watching the Nets. If the Islanders are playing the same day as the slam dunk competition, the three-point competition, stuff like that, I'm watching the Islanders. Baseball does have an intrinsic advantage because there's usually nothing else on. If you're a sports fan, you're watching the Major League Baseball stuff or you're rearranging your sock drawer. But Major League Baseball does a great job of seizing upon that window. They still need to put out good television, a good product. They do, every single year. This timed format of the Home Run Derby is fantastic. It's so much better than the old system of 10 outs. The 3-minute format, it's so much quicker. It's so much cleaner. It's a million times better. The one thing I'll say, though, you've got to do a better job with the cameras. Watching that event yesterday was like a 3-ring circus. Am I going to look to the left to watch Pete Alonso's swing, or am I going to look to the right to see where the previous ball is going to land? I mean, not to go too crazy over an exhibition, but there should be a rule that you need to wait for your previous ball to land before you take your next swing. You want to tell me that cuts into the 3-minute time limit? Then you know what? Give these guys an extra minute or two. Or you know what? Stop the clock. on every high-arcing ball that they hit, stop the clock. Pick it up when the umpire behind home plate points to the batting practice pitcher. It was just very hard to keep track of everything that was happening on TV. Now, granted, I was kind of close to not having to watch that on TV. I was in Denver very recently. I flew out early Sunday afternoon. Don't kid yourself, I did think about staying a couple extra days, going to the Home Run Derby, going to the All-Star Game, flying back on Wednesday. It was kind of weird turning on a TV to watch an event take place at a venue that I was within 5 minutes of less than 48 hours before that. I will say this, though. There was one All-Star Game festivity that I did go to. It was the Play Ballpark, their version of FanFest. They renamed it Play Ballpark, and I had a terrible time. Okay, that was incredibly misadvertised. They said there was stuff there for fans of all ages. No, there wasn't. It was very kid-oriented. And I get that. I understand that Major League Baseball needs to cater to kids a lot more than they need to cater to young adults. But if that's going to be what you do, don't advertise it as being for people of all ages. There was very little to do at the Play Ballpark if you weren't a little kid. Now, my parents and I had tickets that entitled us to go in at any point from 2 to 6 p.m. We went on Friday, the first day. On the Play Ballpark website, and you can look it up, I'm looking at it right now, it says that it's going to close at 8. So that gives us a lot of time to do everything that Play Ballpark has to offer. There wasn't a lot for the non-kids, but one thing that they had was trivia. I love baseball trivia. You know that about me. I pulled up a chair at the trivia exhibit, fully expected to spend a lot of time there. I would have participated. In fact, I did participate a little bit. There was a question that was asked. Who won 1955 World Series MVP? The two contestants up there didn't know it was Johnny Padres. They used one of their lifelines, Ask an Expert. The moderator turned to the audience, who's an expert here. I basically made eye contact with everyone on the stage, and I walked up and I said, yeah, I'm the expert. It's Johnny Padres. He beat my Yankees. Obviously, I was right. And it was funny, I was going to help these two brothers. Like, I was going to move to the front row. I was going to slyly give them the answers. This wasn't like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire or something, where you're playing for obscene amounts of money. I don't know what the grand prize was, but it's the kind of thing where if you're slyly going to give answers, it's not the end of the world. I couldn't even help those brothers out. As I was moving into the front row, the brothers went up to the stage. They asked the moderator, can we play? The moderator said, we're done for today. It was like 4 or 4:30. The event closes at 8. If you are advertising an event to be open until 8, all parts of that event should be open. You want some to close an hour early? I can accept that. But it's inexcusable for part of that event to close like 3.5, 4 hours early. I was furious. I was really upset. Like, I didn't want to do anything else pertaining to play ballpark. I said to my parents, let's go. Let's go somewhere else. We were going to go to the Aurora Shooting Memorial that night. I said, let's go now. No, Jacob, we paid good money to be here. We want to do it. It's okay if you don't. Just find a bench somewhere, but we want to do this. Okay, fine. I can accept that. But boy, I was ticked off. It's one thing if the event is going to close at like 5 or 6. I get that. On Friday, it was supposed to close at 8. People paid a lot of money to go to this event. And part of it closed early. I think that's inexcusable. I mean, I was really upset. Maybe irrationally so. You want to tell me that shouldn't have ruined my time at the Play Ballpark? I get that, but realize that was one of the few things for young adults to do. That and posing for pictures. But I don't really like pictures. So by closing the trivia early, you made it so I had nothing to do. I was steaming mad. In fact, I'm still a little upset about it. Didn't let it ruin my day, though, because before that, my parents and I went to Fair Play, Colorado. There's a lot of South Park stuff there. South Park is my favorite show. Had dinner at Elway's Steakhouse. Very good. Went to the Aurora Shooting Memorial. Very solemn experience. Didn't let it ruin my day. But I was upset about it. Okay. Let me get off my soapbox now and talk about the Derby. We all know that Pete Alonso won. Had an incredible performance. Hit the most home runs in the first round of a Derby ever. I saw some people saying that was the greatest Derby performance ever. No. No, 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 no. And I will fight anyone who says it is. The greatest home run Derby performance ever was what Josh Hamilton did in 2008 at Yankee Stadium with me in attendance. This guy hit home runs to parts of Yankee Stadium that no one knew existed. Parking lots inside the stadium, off signs that have never been touched by a baseball before. You gotta realize something. Coors Field is a bandbox. It's not impressive to hit a bunch of home runs there. Of course, guys like Alonso and Juan Soto and Trey Mancini are gonna hit a lot of home runs there. These guys are insanely powerful. You've got Major League Baseball doing everything in their power to make it so these guys are gonna hit over 500-foot home runs. It's an exhibition, I get that, they're allowed to do that, but if you compare it to home run derbies of old, it's not as impressive as what Josh Hamilton did in 2008. It's on YouTube. If you haven't seen it, watch it. Now, I'm not trying to rain on Alonso's parade, okay? He hit some really impressive home runs. He deserved to win. I'm not saying he didn't. Congratulations to him. Seriously. The thing is, though, this is a little dicey. We all know that Pete Alonso won the home run derby in 2019. That's why you're seeing all the repeat stuff. What no one talks about is what happened in the second half of the 2019 season. after he won the home run derby. He was really bad. In the first half of the season, in 2019, Alonso hit .280 with 53 extra base hits. He had a .372 on base percentage and a .634 slugging percentage. In the second half of that season, he hit .235, only had 31 extra base hits. His on-base percentage fell 30 points. His slugging percentage fell over 100 points. This is the issue with the home run derby. These guys mess up their swings for our amusement. It wouldn't surprise me if Alonso tailed off in the second half. And it really wouldn't surprise me if Shohei Ohtani tailed off in the second half. Because he really altered his swing for this event. He doesn't try to hit home runs a lot. He's a line drive hitter. He's a spray hitter. In Coors Field, he had to try to pull the ball. I can say with a high degree of confidence that the way he adjusted his swing, if he tries that in actual games, it's not going to end well for him. Aaron Judge in 2017. First half of the year. He was incredible. Hit .329. His batting average in the second half fell over 100 points. You know why? Because the home run derby does impact these players' swings. It's very hard to change your swing and then change it back in a short period of time. This isn't me being a Mets hater. This is me being a baseball fan. Okay, do I hate the Mets? The answer is yes, but I'm putting my bias aside here. You know how you know I'm putting my bias aside? I'm going to say this. The New York Mets will win the NL East. Put it in ink. No team in that division is catching them. The Phillies don't have the bullpen for it. The Braves have no chance with Acuna out. The Nationals aren't world beaters, and the Marlins aren't world beaters. The New York Mets are going to win that division. And they can win it even if Alonso has a bad second half. Keyword if. There's no guarantee that he will, but I think it's very possible that he does. But that's not going to make or break the Mets' chances this year. I'll say this about the Mets. Buster Olney, on the broadcast, linked them to Trevor Story. How's that going to work? What hole does Trevor Story fill? He can only play shortstop. You're telling me you're moving on from Lindor that quickly? No. What are you going to do? Move him to second? Move him to third? Story and Lindor have only played one position in the majors. You know what that position is? Shortstop. What are you going to do? Try to have them learn a new position overnight? That's not going to work. I understand that the Mets don't care about defense as much as they do offense, but there's a limit. If you're going to make that work, if you're going to bring in Story and say that he's going to play second or third, or say that Lindor is going to play second or third, they need time to learn that position. You can't change these guys' positions overnight and expect it to work. I don't see it. If the Mets are going to trade for anyone, it's going to be a right fielder because Michael Conforto's having a dreadful season. Mets are thanking their lucky stars that they didn't sign him to an extension. The Lindor extension so far in its early stages doesn't look good for the Mets. You don't want 2 extensions like that. So the Mets do need a right fielder. Who they're going to get, I don't know. But I think Sandy Alderson will be aggressive there. And it wouldn't surprise me if they added another starting pitcher. Really beef up the rotation for the stretch run. I understand that Carrasco's coming back soon. And David Peterson should be back soon. But I think in a perfect world, you'd like to add another starter just to give that rotation a little bit more of a shot in the arm. Only also mentioned the Yankees as a possibility for Story. No, don't trade for him now. You want to bring him in free agency? I can see that. Don't trade for him now. It makes no sense. It doesn't help the Yankees. The Yankees are too far gone. Trading for Trevor Story will not bring them into the playoffs. It may make them a couple games better, but it won't result in them going on a big run in October. No, I don't want Trevor Story yet. I like Story. If the Yankees were to sign him in free agency, I'd be very happy, but I don't want him now. So all in all, congratulations to Pete Alonso. He put on a very impressive show. It was disappointing that Ohtani got eliminated in the first round, although it did have a lot of drama. It went into a swing-off. The thing is, though, Major League Baseball just hyped up Ohtani so much that when he gets eliminated in the first round, that's going to leave a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. Even though the odds-on favorite got eliminated in the first round, it was a very exciting home run derby. In fact, I think the favorite being eliminated made it more exciting, because you didn't know who was going to win. Trey Mancini, another great story, came very close to winning that derby. How great would it have been for a guy who fought cancer a year ago to then win the home run derby? It doesn't bother me that Ohtani was eliminated early. We're going to get our fill of Ohtani tonight. He's going to pitch and he's going to play DH. I will say this, I don't like that. Because in a normal Major League Baseball game, he wouldn't be allowed to do that. I don't like amending the rules like that. I understand it's an exhibition and the fans want to see it. I want to see it. Okay, it would be really impressive if Shohei Ohtani was to strike out the side in the first inning and then hit a leadoff home run. The entire baseball world would go nuts. But you do need to play the All-Star game with the same rules that you play a normal Major League Baseball game. Having said that, though, the All-Star game is more for the fans and what they want to see. I don't want to get too bent out of shape over an exhibition. But it does tick me off a little bit. I just don't like that. Alright, now I'll give you some NHL Valk talk. And I'll start with the Duncan Keith trade. He, along with Tim Soderlund, went to the Oilers in exchange for Caleb Jones and a conditional third-round pick next year. The conditions are that third-rounder could become a second-rounder if the Oilers win 3 rounds of the playoffs next year, and Keith is among the top 4 Oilers defensemen in terms of ice time during the first 3 rounds of those playoffs. So basically, in order for that third to become a second, the Oilers need to be in the Cup Finals next year. Odds are that's not going to happen. Would I put anything past a team with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl? The answer is no. But I don't think Dave Tippett's a good coach, so I don't see them making a cup run. The reaction to this trade has been incredibly surprising to me. The Oilers are getting killed. I mean, part of it is because the Oilers are taking on Keith's full contract. Meaning that for this year and next year, the Oilers will assume Keith's full $5,538,462 cap hit. There's no question that Duncan Keith, at this very moment, is not a $5 million defenseman. At one point in time, he was. Duncan Keith is a future Hall of Famer. We don't think of him as a future Hall of Famer, but he has 3 Stanley Cups, 2 Norris trophies, 4-time All-Star, one of the 3 best players on those Cup teams, Conn Smythe winner in 2015. The guy's a future Hall of Famer. But if Duncan Keith was a free agent tomorrow, he's not getting $5.5 million. So you're paying him based off past performance. You never want to do that. So I understand that end of things. What I don't understand is why people are up in arms about Caleb Jones and the 3rd rounder. It's not going to be a 2nd rounder. It's going to be a 3rd rounder. The Oilers aren't going to make the Stanley Cup Finals next year. It's not impossible, but I wouldn't bet the rent on it. Caleb Jones is not a great player. I don't think he'll ever be great. Look, I'd be lying to you if I said I watch every Oilers game. Okay, there are a lot of people in Western Canada that have seen more of Caleb Jones than me. But from what I've seen, no one's going to be mistaking this guy for Paul Coffey anytime soon. Last year he had just 4 assists in 33 games. He has never had a positive plus-minus. He has never had more than 9 points in a season. He has never played more than 43 games. You're talking about this guy like he's the second coming of Kevin Lowe. He's not. Come on, who's better, Duncan Keith or Caleb Jones? The answer is Duncan Keith. It's not even a contest. If you're starting a team tomorrow, if you want to tell me you'd rather have Caleb Jones, I understand that. Jones is 24. Keith is going to be 38 on Friday. But the Oilers aren't in rebuild mode. Their rebuild mode is over. It's time for them to win. They have arguably the 2 best players in the NHL, Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. How's this for a stat? With those 2 guys on the roster, the Oilers have only won 1 playoff series. In 2017, they beat the Sharks in 6 games. Then they lost to the Ducks in 7 games in the second round. Their time to win is now. This is a win-now move. How are you begrudging the Oilers for that? How are you begrudging the Oilers for adding talent? We know that Duncan Keith is a talented player. He's better than Caleb Jones. People are hyping up the 3rd rounder. The 3rd rounder isn't much. This isn't the NFL. I'm not saying you can throw picks away, but in the NHL, there's a big gap from the 1st round to the 2nd round. 1st to 3rd, it's humongous. 2nd to 3rd, there isn't a big gap there, but again, you can't throw away picks. This is not a bad trade for the Oilers. This makes perfect sense for them. People are bringing up the expansion draft. Oh my God, the Oilers need to take up a spot for Duncan Keith. That's not a bad thing. Run with me on this. Who are the Oilers going to protect? McDavid, Draisaitl, Nugent Hopkins, Nurse, Keith, Klefbom. Those are the no-brainers. Then you can go to a guy like Kyler Yamamoto if you want to, Jesse Puljujarvi if you want to. Tyson Barrie's set to be a free agent this year, so you wouldn't protect him anyway. The Oilers are fine. The Oilers need someone who's going to help them win in the playoffs. You'd be hard-pressed to find anyone better to help the Oilers out than Duncan Keith. I mean, the Blackhawks did good to get out from under his salary. They're going to blow things up soon. It wouldn't surprise me if Taves was traded. It wouldn't surprise me if Kane was traded. The Blackhawks' era of dominance is over. Their 3 Stanley Cups in 6 years is a distant memory. They haven't made it out of the first round since 2015. They need to blow things up. Playing through Patrick Kane and Jonathan Taves when he comes back isn't going to work anymore. It's time for the young guns to take over. Alex DeBrincat, Dominic Kubalik, Pius Suter, etc., etc. The reality is this trade makes sense for both sides. You want to tell me it makes more sense for the Blackhawks? You can make that argument. I mean, Keith wasn't doing them any good. He doesn't fit the age range that they want. There were rumors that he wanted out. He wanted to be closer to his family in Western Canada. So the Blackhawks did right by a franchise legend. And does this mean that the Oilers are going to win a Stanley Cup? Absolutely not. But it helps them. The Edmonton Oilers are better today than they were yesterday. Are they better set up for the future than they were yesterday? No, but it doesn't matter. They're in win now mode. The Islanders aren't set up well for the future. No one cares. You know why? Because they're in win now mode. The Tampa Bay Lightning aren't set up well for the future. No one cares because they've won back-to-back Stanley Cups. The reality is this trade makes sense for both sides. Good job by the Oilers in improving their roster, and a good job by the Blackhawks in getting younger. Anyone who says otherwise is just wrong. Moving on now to a shocking development out of Minnesota. Zach Parise and Ryan Suter. At one point in time, the faces of the Wild, the guys who were going to win them multiple Stanley Cups, the crown jewels of the 2012 NHL free agency class, have been bought out. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. I remember when the Wild signed those guys. They both signed 13-year deals worth $98 million. And you know what? No one begrudged the Wild for handing out those deals. They were great players at the time. I mean, it was widely thought that the Wild would win with these guys. Now, I'll say this. The Wild sorta kinda did. In their first 6 years with the Wild, they did make the playoffs. The thing is, though, they haven't won a playoff round since 2015, when they beat the St. Louis Blues in 6 games. They then got swept by the Blackhawks. And how's this for irony? The coach of the Wild that year was Mike Yeo, who obviously would go on to coach the Blues. Alanis Morissette would like that. The signings, in the grand scheme of things, didn't work. There's no question. And it would behoove the Wild to go in a younger direction. That's what they want to do. They just signed Eriksson Ek to a big contract. Obviously, they have Kirill Kaprizov, who just won the Calder Trophy. They stole Kevin Fiala from the Predators a couple years ago for Mikael Granlund. They have Jordan Greenway. You get this sense that the Wild do want to go younger. Look, Parise and Suter are not the Parise and Suter of old. They're both 36 years old. Last year, Parise had 18 points in 45 games. Suter had 19 points in 56 games. Zach Parise and Ryan Suter aren't going to make all-star teams anymore. I mean, this is a new era of Wild hockey. Bill Guerin is going to build the roster in his image. He wants guys who are young, guys who are in the primes of their career. Out with the old, in with the new. I get it. Parise and Suter didn't do the job. They never made a conference finals with the Wild. I'll say this, if you're Matt Zuccarello, watch out. There's a chance you may be moved on from soon. The thing that kind of gets me about this is the Wild are paying these guys a ton of money to go away. Next year, their buyouts are going to count for $2,371,794 against the cap. That's not awful. The year after, it balloons by $4 million. The 2 years after that, it goes up another $1 million. So in 3 of the next 4 years, the Wild are going to have over $12 million in dead cap. If you're going to try to build for the future, those are the years that you're trying to be competitive in. You can't wait until 25, 26. You're not going to be around to see it. This is a ton of money to pay these guys to go play somewhere else. I mean, the thing is, these buyouts actually count for less than what those 2 guys would have counted against if they had kept them. The thing is, though, you're still getting something if you keep them on the roster. You weren't going to trade these guys. A lot of teams are in cap trouble. No team could afford it. The Islanders tried to get Parise, not at this past deadline, the deadline before. It didn't work out because they didn't have the cap room. Now, forget about it. No team could afford Parise. No team could afford Suter. But I would rather pay those guys and have them contribute than pay those guys just to go away. Parise and Suter are still good. They're not great, but they're good. In fact, I'll even say this. These guys have already gotten their big boy contracts. They are set for life. Would they be willing to take a discount to go to the Islanders? Obviously, Lamoriello has a Parise connection. Parise's father used to play for the Islanders. Like I said, there were rumors a couple years ago that Parise would be traded to the Islanders. It didn't happen. If you can move on from Leo Komarov, bring in Zach Parise. That makes perfect sense. Ryan Suter, too. If the Islanders are going to lose Leddy and Andy Green, they're going to need lefty defensemen. Ryan Suter's a lefty defenseman. The two guys who I called for the Islanders to sign are Michael Del Zotto and Derek Forbort. Suter is better than those two guys put together. Think about this third line. Zach Parise, J.G. Pajot, and Oliver Wahlstrom. Think about this defenseman core. Adam Pelech, Ryan Pollock, Ryan Suter, Scott Mayfield, Michael Del Zotto, and Noah Dobson. You can make the argument that makes the Islanders Stanley Cup favorites. So look, I know why the Wild did this. It did save them money. It's not the best use of their cap hits. I would have rather they kept them and get something rather than get rid of them and get nothing. You're still paying them a ton of money. But it wouldn't surprise me at all if these buyouts resulted in these guys going to the Islanders. They'd fit perfectly. Moving on now to the Pelicans, hiring Willie Green as their next head coach. Obviously, this hire cannot be finalized until the NBA Finals are over, but it's a safe bet to say that Willie Green will succeed Stan Van Gundy as the next head coach of the Pelicans. I'll be honest with you. I don't like this hire. It doesn't fit with what the Pelicans need. Willie Green's strength as a coach is that he builds really good relationships with players. And that should be expected because he had a really long NBA career. The guy played 12 seasons in the league. He was a solid shooter. Solid player. But the Pelicans don't need a communicator. They need a guy who's going to help them with defense. Willie Green isn't going to do that. That's not his strength. That's not what he did for the Warriors. That's not what he's doing for the Suns. The Pelicans need a guy who can help their defense. Jacques Vaughn would have been a perfect fit for them. Instead, you're going with a communicator. And look, I understand why. There were rumors that said that Stan Van didn't get along with Zion, didn't get along with B.I., wasn't really clicking with the roster, and you want to keep these guys happy. The last thing on earth you want, if you're the Pelicans, is to see another superstar leave. First Chris Paul, then Anthony Davis. Could Zion be next? I get that you want to keep him happy. But you can't do that at the expense of winning. That'll make him happy. See, I don't understand this theory that coaches need to be best friends with their players. They really don't. Like, in a perfect world, that's not a thing. Should they have good relationships? The answer is yes. But they don't need to be buddy-buddy. Actually, I kind of like them to be a little distant. It means that there's no bias in terms of scheme or who's getting the ball. Down 1 with 5 seconds left. Look, there's a middle ground. You don't want a guy who could have the best system in the world but doesn't get along with his players. There's a reason that Larry Brown wears out his welcome very quickly. And you don't want a guy who's going to get along with the players, but in terms of coaching ability, it's just not there. Cough, cough, Steve Nash. The Pelicans went to the Larry Brown end of that spectrum with the SVG hire. Was the defense where you wanted it to be? No, but it was better than the year before. Now they're overcorrecting to the Nash end. What some teams do is they hire a guy who may not have the best relationship with the players, but his scheme is great. And then the top assistant kind of helps out with the messaging. That can be scary. You don't want a team respecting the assistant coach more than the head coach. But if the communication is consistent on all sides, that doesn't happen. Look, I don't want to kill Willie Green. Was a solid player, has 2 rings as an assistant coach. I have no reason to say that he's going to do a bad job with the Pelicans. This just doesn't fit with what they really need. They don't need a best friend for Zion. They need a guy who's going to get him to the playoffs. That'll make Zion happy. That'll make Ingram happy. That'll make Lonzo happy. Look, I like David Griffin. I think he has a good head on his shoulders. There's no question that he's made some bad moves with the Pelicans. They could have had DeAndre Hunter. Instead, they end up with Jackson Hayes and Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Steven Adams hasn't worked out. Eric Bledsoe hasn't worked out. The J.J. Redick situation was handled terribly. I think Griffin has a good head on his shoulders, but he's got to right the ship quickly, or else he's going to be out of a job. I do want to talk about a really sad death in the sports world. And that is the death of Alex Gibbs, who died yesterday at the age of 80 after suffering a stroke. Alex Gibbs is without question one of the greatest offensive line coaches in NFL history. He's right up there with a guy like Dante Scarnecchia. What Gibbs did for the Denver Broncos of the mid to late 90s can't be overstated. Gibbs really bounced around before he got to the Broncos in 95. Spent over a decade coaching college. Then he went to the Broncos, funnily enough, in 1984. I know I was focusing on the mid to late 90s, but with Gibbs as offensive line coach, the Broncos made the playoffs 3 out of 4 years, They made the Super Bowl in 86 and 87. He made Sammy Winder look a lot better than he actually was. And he helped John Elway out a lot. That's worth mentioning too. Gibbs then bounced around from the Raiders to the Chargers to the Colts to the Chiefs. Then Mike Shanahan brought Gibbs back to Denver. Why did he bring Gibbs back? I'll tell you why. No one remembers this, but Mike Shanahan's first head coaching job in the NFL was with the LA Raiders. He coached them in 1988 and for the first 4 games of the 89 season. Shanahan was not good for the Raiders, but he brought in Gibbs as his assistant. So when Shanahan got another head coaching opportunity, he went to Gibbs again and made him offensive line coach. That was the best hire that Mike Shanahan could have made. The Broncos implemented a zone blocking scheme. Instead of wanting the biggest, beefiest, toughest guys in the room, the Broncos wanted the smaller, more agile offensive linemen. Guys like Mark Schlereth, Tom Nalen, Dan Neal, etc., etc. The system worked perfectly. You gotta realize something. Before Mike Shanahan got to Denver, John Elway was viewed very similarly to Dan Marino. Great quarterback, but can't win the big one. The guy was 0 for 3 in Super Bowls. You knew he was talented, but you didn't think that you could win with him. Terrell Davis, this 6th round draft pick that didn't have a great career in college, was not a great Georgia Bulldog. He's not going to do much for the Broncos. There's no way this ends well, right? Oh, how wrong those people were. The zone blocking helped Elway get over the hump and win back-to-back Super Bowls. It helped Terrell Davis turn into one of the best running backs of the mid to late 90s. It helped the Broncos beat my beloved Jets in 1998. That zone blocking scheme helped Davis rush for 167 yards. The Jets that year had a really good defense. Davis made them look terrible. But part of that was because of the zone blocking scheme that Gibbs instituted. People go on and on about the Shanahan offense. Alex Gibbs helped that offense a lot. The zone blocking scheme is a huge part of the Shanahan offense. You need an offensive line coach who can help make that work. Here's hoping that John Benton can. Benton is the offensive line coach for the Jets. They're obviously going to install the Shanahan offense. Gibbs left the Broncos after the 2003 season. Bounced around to the Falcons, the Texans, the Seahawks for a little bit. He did go back to the Broncos, but that was only as a consultant. Without Alex Gibbs and the zone blocking scheme that he popularized, it is fair to wonder if the Broncos win the 97 and 98 Super Bowls? Would we look at John Elway the same way that we look at guys like Marino and Jim Kelly and Phillip Rivers? Great quarterbacks that just couldn't win the big one. Would the Jets have made it to Super Bowl 33? Would they have beaten the Falcons? These are some fun hypotheticals that we'll never know the answer to. May Alex Gibbs rest in peace. Until tomorrow, I am Jacob Valk saying that in the old days, in the daytime, you'd sit in the dugout and talk about women. In the old days at night, you went out with women and talked about baseball.